Hey everybody, John Chow of Cruise Addicts, and of course you're watching from the Viking Cruises group. Thank you all for being here. And our topic today is going to be how to prepare for your cruise. It really could be any cruise nowadays, but of course we're focusing specifically on Viking and what it takes. A lot of people have a lot of questions, and today we have really the wonderful authority and expert, Viking's top global producer, Michael Consoli. He's an award-winning agent, and he's actually here to answer your questions. So before we get started, please, if you have a pressing question, if you just want to check in and say hello to us, of course, we're happy to have you here. This will be able to be replayed for your friends and family in the future. So it'll be, preserved for further watching. But if you have a question, any question at all, please ask right now in the questions in the comments below here. And of course, check in. Michael Consoli standing by. We're going to get him in here, and he's going to start going over some of the course, the things to prepare for, how to prepare for your cruise. I'll get it out here. What does it really take today? So, Michael, I need your help because I can't talk.
Yeah, here I am, John. Happy to help.
Thank you so much. So good to see you. I know I just got back and you're preparing for a cruise. So very exciting times. We're actually, it wasn't that long ago. We need to keep some focus here. That reference, I guess, a frame of reference, and it wasn't long ago where we couldn't cruise at all, was it?
Nope, not very long ago. But now, we're able to do pretty much everything. So, except of course, go to Russia.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll correct itself sooner than later. I know everybody's, that's on everybody's minds. But yeah, it wasn't that long ago that we actually were sitting here having conversation just like we are now, hoping that we'd actually be able to resume cruising. And here we are now. People actually can cruise. There are some things that we have to deal with, and we're going to cover that. And so I guess the first thing is, a passport requirement. You got to, if you're going to, you're going to fly overseas, you're going to go outside of a closed loop cruise, like say from the Caribbean, from Miami, you're actually going to need a passport. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, for every cruise that Viking offers, you have to have a passport, except for maybe the Mississippi. The requirements that they have are that you have a passport that's good for at least 6 months after your travel date. So that's to meet the requirements, the minimum requirements for most of the countries that, the river or ocean cruises go to. So definitely need to make sure that your passport date, your expiration date is good. Viking system is really great at recognizing those guests that have expired passports. So if you get a notification from them that your passport is expired, then I would encourage you to go ahead and get it renewed, because waiting until you need it again is not really the best time to do it. So
you'd probably see some grown men crying at the counter there, right? Trying to get on the plane.
Yeah. It's much easier to get your passport renewed than it is to, before it expires than it is after it expires. So, and then, I can't tell you the number of people that we have that contact us from the airport and are like, oh my gosh, our passport isn't good for 6 months, even though we remind them and we send them notices and all of our paperwork says that. A lot of times people get there and they don't realize that their passport actually expires within that 6 month window. So that's really the first piece of documentation that you're going to need for your Viking cruise, if you're traveling in the next few months.
And it's sad because that is kind of like a hard stop, isn't it? Like just there's no pass go there.
You have to schedule an extra day so that you can go get an expedited passport somewhere. So it's definitely important.
We were actually able to do my wife needed to get hers renewed, and the Department of State has a new program where you don't actually have to send your passport. You can actually get a passport photo and from like CVS, and then you upload it, and then you scan your actual passport and everything. I believe it's all done online, and she was able to get hers back. You can expedite it a little bit, not the 1 day what we might have been able to do in the past, but it's that's coming online. I guess that's why I'm bringing up is I think in the near future. I was still kind of like in trial phases when we did it, because we were able to. We had a family member that worked for the government, so we were able to we had a first in line kind of thing. But it's very exciting that you can actually renew your passport much quicker now, and hopefully the times will get quicker as well.
Yeah.
So the next thing, I guess, is vaccination requirements. You got to get your shots.
Yeah. So there are a lot of questions about vaccination requirements and what's required to travel on the river and on ocean. And obviously, the booster is not necessarily required, but there are countries that do require that you have either the first or second shot within the last 270 days. So if you've had your last shot within 9 months of your travel date, then you're good to go without having to have the booster. But if you're outside of that 9 month window, then most likely you're going to be required to have a booster shot if you're traveling to the EU. So, it's really important to check those specific requirements for the country that you're visiting. But if you're outside of 9 months from your last shot, whether it was a booster or first or second shot, when you're traveling, then you will most likely be required to have a second shot. So that's really important to note. I'm sorry, most likely be required to have a booster shot. So, and I just want to state before we really get into the weeds of these details that this information that we're sharing is effective as of May 1st of 2022. So if you're viewing this later than that, these are certainly subject to change. They are what is required today to travel and may not be what's required next week. So I did want to mention that we are doing this on May 1st in 2022, and that these are the requirements as of today.
So use your own due diligence when it comes time to travel, because we don't want to have you upset with us.
Right. We don't want you to have the wrong information. So the moral of the story is to make sure that you utilize the information that's provided to you by the airlines and the cruise line to make sure that you have the right information for your specific trip.
Yeah, and I just saw a post the other day in the group, and people were talking about specific testing requirements for specific countries, and someone was a little upset with something, and people were saying, well, you got to read that fine print. And I remember on my Viking cruise, I had to go to Barbados, and me and you actually talked about this. There was a small little line that says, this is what's required by the ship, but this little line said, here's Barbados requirements, and it was a link to Barbados. And wow, what a difference that was.
Yeah.
So it all worked out, but Barbados wanted certain testing, PCR testing from a lab. You couldn't do the home testing. And I was getting off a ship that morning and actually had to get it at the airport before my flight. So there was a little bit, and a small little window. So you didn't know I was an acrobatic, but it worked out. It was worth everything. I've never been tested more than one day because I was tested at the airport. I was tested on the ship immediately, and I was tested again in my room, PCR test with the little, the test that they do for everybody. So yeah, a lot of testing going on, but it's well worth it, and I hope everybody else feels the same way. But of course, it's a little debatable, isn't it, out there on the groups? So
yeah.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is the passenger locator forms.
Yeah. So each country has their own requirement about whether or not you need to complete the passenger locator form. And so when Viking gives you, when you get this, you'll get an important document, pre-departure document from Viking, and it will tell you exactly what you need to have for your departure. This one happens to be for the Mediterranean Odyssey coming up in May. And you'll notice that it says at the top that it's effective, and the effective date, I don't know if I can get that into focus, but the effective date of the travel requirements, that when they were published. So you want to pay attention to that, but they send these to you directly, and it's going to specify what you need to have. If you have to have, what you need to have for vaccination, what you need to have as far as VeriFLY, what you need to have as far as a passenger locator form. We call them PLFs, the passenger locator form. And if you have to have a PLF, it's going to tell you on here whether or not you have to have the passenger locator form. They'll provide a link for you to fill out. It's very simple form to complete. It does vary by country, but you basically just put your name, your passport information, passport expiration, how you're arriving to that country, the flight number, even the seat that you're sitting in, because that's what they're using this for. They're using it for contact tracing, and they want to know where the guests are going to be in their country. You'll put your first, hotel or the ship name if you're getting right on the ship, but these forms are required, and it's going to be a hassle when you get to the airport and your departure city and they ask you for this form and you don't have it completed. And I really want to be very specific in that if you're visiting a country that requires a passenger locator form, you want to make sure you complete it before you leave your house. I just had a guest yesterday flying through Paris on Air France, and they were just flying through Paris, and Air France told them that they had to have this passenger locator form. So my point about this is to make sure that you check also with the airline that you're flying on to make sure that you meet the requirements that they have for you as well. So while Viking can provide this information to you for the countries that you're visiting, they may not necessarily provide you the information for the airport that you're flying through on the way to your destination. So you want to be very sure that you check with the airline to make sure they also don't have a requirement that you need to meet. This is not something that is necessarily going to be on this information that Viking sends you, because they don't necessarily take into account whether or not you're flying through a certain country to get there. So usually I have to say that if you're flying through a specific country on your way to your destination, they don't require that you complete this form, because if you're staying less than 24 hours, they don't require the passenger locator form. So I really want to be, specific about that and clear that you may not, need that to transit through an airport on your way to your final destination in Europe, but you want to make sure you check with the airline, because they are the enforcers of this information. In other words, when you get to your departure airport and you check in, they're going to ask you to see your vaccination card if that's required by the country that you're visiting. They're going to ask to see the COVID test if that's required by the country that you're visiting. They're going to ask to see this passenger locator form if that's required by the country that you're visiting. So they are the enforcers of that. And then you may have to show it again when you arrive in that country. But the airlines are charged with checking this information when you check in. So you'll want to be sure that you have it with you. And you also, I encourage my clients to make sure they have a second copy, whether it's on their smartphone or in their email box, that they can easily access if they misplace that information. I had a client most recently 2 weeks ago who left the folder that she had all this information in at the check-in counter at the airport. And thank God she had a copy of everything else, in a second copy in her carry-on bag, as well as pictures of all of this on their smartphone. So even when we talk about the passport and the vaccination card, you should have pictures of all of this on your smartphones so that you can make sure you can access it if you need to have it.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been traveling recently. We just did several cruises, and you're going up to the terminal with these stacks of papers, your test results, your passport, your all these different forms and everything like that. And of course, when you go international, it gets even more. And it's almost like you need an attaché case, just for forms. When they say papers, when they ask you for papers, now you're like, sure. So, but yeah, it's something else nowadays. So great advice there. And I want to stress with that form that you just showed us, there's step by step. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to do this, 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 and this, because some of the people in the group I'm noticing, I don't know if they are missing that or just get so excited, or or just they really need to slow down and look at that particular form you just showed and make sure they go through there, because that's actually where it said about my Barbados.
It is. It's very specific. Like, for instance, this one says, here's what you're going to need to travel. And it says passport, COVID vaccination, immunization, proof of negative COVID test. And then for travel to Italy, you're going to be required to have X, Y, and Z. And then it has a checklist, a pre-departure checklist. So it gives you boxes to check off that you have this information and you're ready to go. So this is really important to utilize this checklist. I know there was a post on the Facebook page that said, oh, Viking didn't tell me I needed to have this, this, or this. This information is definitely on these forms. You want to make sure that you follow this and that you check again with the departure airline that you're utilizing. Those are the two tools that really are going to help you ensure that you have what you need.
Yeah, I really say slow down, because I actually almost got myself in trouble because I was doing another cruise, and there's a little bit of a concern there when you feel like you might have missed a step. So I really hope that everybody slows down and takes a look step by step on that form. You really need to slow down and look at it and read it carefully, because there was a little line that said Barbados may have extra requirements. Visit their website. I clicked on it, And wow, I learned a whole bunch of stuff. And
and the reason why Viking provides that link, and they did it here too for Italy, the reason they provide that link is because while they try their absolute best to have the most up-to-date information, this stuff is changing daily, right? And so they want to make sure that they have an opportunity to provide you with the most up-to-date information. So yeah, it's really important to just follow the steps. And I have to tell you, we work with all cruise lines, all destinations. Nobody provides the amount of information that Viking provides for this. We are, the guest is basically, it's like with visas, the guest is charged with, get responsible for getting their own visas. If you're, visiting a country somewhere that requires a visa, which, I know that we're not talking about that today. The guest is typically charged with that task. It's not something that falls upon the cruise line, although they have a visa service like Visa Central, or something like that will assist with it, but it's up to the guest to get that information. Most of the cruise lines treat this stuff, the COVID requirements, the same way. It's up to the guest to familiarize themselves with what they need for their trip. And so, you do want to make sure that you follow the steps and making sure that you look for this important information email that you're going to get from the cruise line that's going to tell you what you need, and then that you follow up with the airline that you're flying to make sure that you have what they require as well.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated, but you got to slow down and do those steps.
Yeah.
So the next thing is actually VeriFLY. So there's one of those steps, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is really important. The VeriFLY process, again, I want to make sure that people know that VeriFLY now, while in the past it's been required for all Viking cruises, it's now only required for ocean and expedition cruises. As of April 1st, it's no longer required. VeriFLY is no longer required for river. So if you're, concerned about completing that task before you go on a river cruise, know that they're not going to require it anymore, that you are going to just show your COVID vaccination card to the ship when you board. But they are still utilizing it for ocean departures and for expedition. And if your cruise does require that VeriFLY app on your phone, Viking also provides, and you don't have to show this, John, but I just want to say they provide the step-by-step instructions on how to complete that. It's a 5-page document, and then they also provide a phone number for VeriFLY if you have any type of technical difficulty filling out the form. So it is a process. It's an app you download to your phone. You follow the step-by-step by adding your Viking reservation, and then it asks you a series of questions, including uploading a photograph of yourself and a photograph of the back and front of your vaccination card. And then it goes to a third party to verify the validity of your vaccine card. So that's how they are using it. Some of the airlines, again, are requiring this. So you may be on a river cruise if you're flying on British Air or some other airline that requires this particular VeriFLY app. You want to make sure that you do fulfill it for them. And this again falls under making sure that you have what you need for the airline when you're ready to fly.
All right. The next thing is COVID testing.
Yeah. So this is something that I think people find very confusing about the pre-test for these trips. They will take a PCR test 72 hours prior to departure, or an antigen test 24 hours prior to your departure. Now, most of the time, it's only Viking that's requiring this test, okay? So unless the country that you're visiting specifies, that you need to have a test, like in John's example where Barbados said he had to have a test, these are the requirements that you would need to have. Most of the EU is not requiring a test if you are a guest who is fully vaccinated. So fully vaccinated guests do not have to provide COVID tests. But the cruise line wants you to have that test before you leave the U.S. just to show, just to be a responsible traveler for yourself, so that you're not going to show up at the ship and test positive. So they want to make sure that you knew you were negative when you left the country. And in doing so, doing this test, the PCR test or the antigen test, again, PCR test 72 hours prior to departure, antigen test 48 hours prior to departure. But the biggest question I get is, what do I judge that time frame on? And it's based on the flight time of your first U.S. departure flight. So if you're flying from Kansas City to New York, and then New York onto Amsterdam, the the flight time, I mean the PCR or antigen test time is going to be based on that departure from Kansas City, not from New York, not from when you arrive in Amsterdam, not from when you get on board the ship. It's 72 hours prior to your first U.S. departure flight, or 48 or 24 hours prior to your first U.S. departure flight for an antigen test. So just to clarify one more time, for guests that need to have a test to meet Viking standard, 72 hours prior to your U.S. departure flight, your first U.S. departure flight for a PCR test, and 24 hours prior to your first U.S. departure flight for an antigen test. And, we have a lot of questions every day about where to get these tests. How can I get these tests? I encourage my clients to go to somebody who specializes in COVID testing for travel. A lot of these, urgent cares offer this type of service. They're testing people for travel. And if you specify that you need a test for travel, they will make sure you get it back in a number of hours instead of a number of days.
Great. Yeah, I've had plenty of tests, and we got used to doing the home tests that were monitored. They work out great. So
yeah.
The next thing is airline check-ins.
Yeah, so this goes back to what I was talking about with the airline's requirements. You want to make sure you attempt to do your airline check-in. And the reason why I say attempt is because 99% of the time, because of the COVID requirements for traveling outside the US, you're not going to be able to complete your online check-in online. You're going to have to put in all the information, and it's going to give you a screen that says, "I'm sorry, we can't check you in at this time. You need to check in at the airport with an agent at the check-in counter." And this is not because there's a problem with your ticket. It's not because your seats aren't there. It's because they need to put their eyes on your passport and the COVID requirements that you have to fulfill before they'll issue you a boarding pass. That's the only reason. So we get calls, all the time from, rightfully so, from guests who are panicked that they can't get their boarding pass. And the reason is because the agents at the airport have to put their eyes on the required documents for your specific flight. And so that is usually the reason why you can't complete the online check-in. Obviously, we want to encourage you to go online, complete all the steps, and let it tell you that you have to check in at the desk, because the only thing you'll have to do when you get to the desk is show your passport, your COVID information requirements, and then they'll issue you a boarding pass. So please do go through the steps to do the online check-in on your airline's website so that you can make sure that you do have all the required documentation when you get to the airport the next day.
So the next topic, daily testing.
Yeah, this is like my favorite subject the past couple of weeks. So there's a lot of speculation about them getting rid of daily testing and on river or on ocean, and that they have, $1 million, labs on the ocean product and probably are never going to get rid of testing. I mean, and that's definitely not the case. They don't want to test whether they have the lab or not. So what they want to do with the testing is ensure the safety of their guests and make sure that their guests feel safe. So yes, I am also somebody that hopes they will get rid of daily testing just because of the stress I think it causes the guests. But there are equally as the same number of guests that are, that are given comfort from the daily testing because they know that everybody else that they're traveling with is also being tested. But my personal opinion is that the U.S. lifts the requirement to get back into the U.S., lifts the testing requirement, then most likely Viking will too. Although that's, as I said, just an opinion. It has nothing, there's no official word from Viking that that's the case. And as many people have asked on the Facebook page, there is no official word about when or if Viking will lift the daily testing requirement. So, yeah. But just to clarify so people know what it is, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to have to get a swab in my nose every day. It's literally just a test tube that is left in your cabin. You supply the sample yourself. There's nobody in there making sure you do the sample, but you want to do it yourself, but it's self-administered. So you spit into a tube essentially, and then turn that tube into the front desk, or it's picked up on your door, tested that day. And then the results are typically never provided to you unless for some reason you test positive. Then the last day of the cruise, they will provide you with a negative test so that you have what you need to get home. So, but it is self-administered. It's non-invasive. It's very easy to do. And you turn it in to the front desk or put it on your door, and they process the testing. On river, the testing is processed off the ship, and on ocean, on different labs down the river. On ocean, it's actually processed on board the ship.
And another thing that we had, I'm not sure if it's on all the products, but we actually had to check in or get our temperature taken. They had different stations, like near guest services, where you swipe your little key card. It would say your name. You just put your face on the thing, and we'd give your temperature. They wanted you to do that at daily to make sure that you didn't have a temperature running.
Yeah, and if anybody's traveled anywhere in the past year and a half, that's pretty common now. I mean, they have all these temperature check cameras they can see. So yeah, I mean, again, it's to make the guests feel safe. So
yeah, so now the trip's over, right? So we have to get testing to get back into the United States.
Yeah, so the test to get back in the U.S. is, usually provided by the cruise line. If as long as the last bit of travel you're doing is with them. So if you're at a cruise line sponsored hotel, or you're just getting off the ship and going home, they're going to provide you with the test you need to get home. If you're traveling on your own afterwards, then you're probably going to have to provide that test yourself. I encourage my clients to just ask somebody at the concierge at the hotel you're staying at for where you could get a test done. And, I have to say, we've been all over Europe in the past 6 months, and I mean, you can't swing a cat without hitting a COVID testing site. So it's very easy to get your own test if you need one. But the best thing to know is that you can do, as John mentioned, you can do a self-administered test, or what we call a monitored or proctored home test. These you can buy like on emed.com or at your pharmacy, and it's going to have a big red bar across it that says, do not open this package until you're on with your doctor. So it's a proctored test that you do over a computer or a laptop with a doctor, and they actually observe you test yourself and then observe your test results and provide you with an email that has, obviously a barcode or something that you can show the U.S. Government when you come into the United States that you've been tested. So again, this is usually administered by the airport where you check in. So like when we were coming home from Budapest a few weeks ago, the woman who checked me in at the airline desk, asked for this test, glanced at it and said, okay, and moved on. So, that it is very easy to get done if you're doing the travel after your trip on your own. Again, you can get it at a local pharmacy in Europe, or you can purchase a home proctored or monitored test that you can do on yourself at the hotel over a Zoom call with a doctor. All
right. So now we're home. We have to book another cruise, so they can actually call you, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely contact Michael at 1-800-913-7245. He's always available. He never sleeps. You can email Michael at planmycruise.com and visit his website, planmycruise.com. And you can actually work with the best in the industry for booking Viking and many other vacations. So now all these we've learned how to prepare for your cruise. Now it's question time. So if you have any questions, please just enter in the comments below here, and we can actually answer it. And we go to the people now here, Michael. Let's see. We've got a Facebook user says they're excited about their June cruise. I'll spit this out. Hello to me. Hello back to you. I don't know who you are, but so good to have you here. We've got so many people watching right now live, Michael. This is really great. We sure appreciate you. I know I can speak for Michael. We're so happy to have you all here. If you have any questions, just want to check in, tell us about your upcoming cruise. Give StreamYard permission to use your name, and we'll actually know who to say hello to. We'll see your smiling face here. Here's a perfect example. Brenda Metzger from YouTube. She says, hello from Virginia, excited for our first Viking cruise in July. What is the one thing we should do to get the most from our experience? We're sailing to Alaska from Vancouver. So that's a great question, Michael.
Yeah, I would take the time to look at every single port and find what what specifically interests you in that port, right? So, I mean, the included excursions that Viking provides are really great to give you an overview. But, if there's something that you want to do specifically, whale watching, eagle sanctuary, that kind of thing. It's really important to plan those ahead of time and make sure that you're, choosing the right excursions for you. Because what I get a lot of questions about excursions, and what I like to do, which is mainly eat and shop, may not be what people, want to do themselves. So I usually encourage my clients to take a look at those and share their feedback about what they're interested in. And then I share my clients and my own feedback based on, their experiences that they've had on those excursions. So I definitely would study the destinations and make sure that you're visiting the things that you want to see. And, take advantage of, on the ocean ships, definitely take advantage of the complimentary heated beds and therapy pools and the spa and the snow room and the sauna, all that stuff that's usually not complimentary on a cruise. It's a great opportunity to take advantage of some of those things.
And it doesn't get much better in Alaska. I've been obviously covering cruising for a long time, and almost every captain will actually say Alaska is their favorite part of the world to cruise, and that's saying something for people that spend their lives cruising every destination. And when we sit down and talk to people, they just love Alaska. And when we were on Viking Octanus, we were all saying how great it would be for that particular ship to go to Alaska with all those wonderful the different opportunities with scientists on board and the many different things. We'd like to see maybe future ones go to that part of the world. So yeah, you've definitely picked the right itinerary, Brenda. And Linda Gutowski says, good info. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for giving us permission to see your smiling face there. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Linda.
And Kathy West from YouTube says she booked her first Viking Ocean cruise for March of 2023. She's embarking in Venice, where we overnight. Will port changes affect our ability to see Venice? Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, a lot of the cruise lines have to dock 90 minutes, 2 hours away from Venice, since Venice closed off the terminal to cruise ships, coming down the canal. So, but luckily for Viking guests, they're just docking in Fusina for the majority of their sailings, which is only about 25 minutes away from the city. So they're having guests check in at the Venice terminal and then taking them to Fusina to board the ship. So really, I do not think it will affect your ability. It's just going to add 20 to 25 minutes travel time on the excursion. So Venice is a really great city, and you could stay there all day and still explore and not get lost. It's a beautiful city.
Great here. So we have Susan King. Hello, Susan. And she says, we're on the Viking cruise into the Midnight Sun, June 7th. Any word and when excursions will open up? That's another great question.
Yeah, this has been a real challenge for Viking this year, and many of the other cruise lines too, being able to secure the space that they need for short excursions. Some of these companies are just now opening, and so it's not a matter of whether or not they can get the space. It's just a matter of these companies committing to the space, in a timely manner for Viking. So they are, you will get the excursions that when that they promise, but the challenges that Viking is having is that the companies that provide these excursions in each of these ports have been much slower in getting ready for the season than Viking would like. So, and again, it's not just Viking, it's all the cruise lines. They're all having this issue with securing the space because of the response time or the companies that are providing these tours.
Okay, we've got some really great questions are coming in. Thank you, everybody, for writing the questions. I'm actually seeing them come in, and they're really, really good. If you have a question in mind, just want to say hello. We'd love to hear from you. So please make a comment below. The next question was, I was told that Viking that the 72-hour test pertained to our first contact with Viking. So if we are traveling independently from the U.S. to Amsterdam, the test must be 72 hours prior to boarding. Any clarification?
Yeah, so the test just needs to be within the guidelines of your flight. So if you are traveling on your own flights, the test just needs to be before you leave the U.S. It's been very confusing for guests, and I don't think that the clarifications that they've provided have been very good. So Again, I would check directly with Viking to make sure that you're meeting their requirement. But to be quite honest with you, the cruise line just wants to make sure that you know that you've tested yourself before you leave. So, and you're going to be tested when you get on board the ship. So testing before you leave the United States within that window of 72 hours for PCR, 48 hours for antigen is the requirement that you need to meet, even if you're traveling on your own.
Thank you for that clarification. And we've got Joanne Mullins. She says, Michael is the best, of course. He is very prompt with his responses to my emails. I email him at least every other day, and he's so patient with me. So,
thank you so much, Joanne. It's my pleasure to help you. I really enjoy it. So thank you for saying that.
And we have another comment. Just to be clear, I'm to take my COVID test from my first flight from the US, flying from Phoenix to Philly to Amsterdam.
That's correct.
So make sure you take it before you get on your first flight.
That's correct.
Great. So next question. Was told by Viking that the 72-hour test had to be before our first contact with Viking. Is that the same question? Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's the same one.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're sailing November A to B. Notice on Viking River, there was no times listed for leaving the home port. So I'm guessing
sailing in November at Amsterdam to Budapest. Notice on Viking River, there are no times listed for leaving the home port. That's because on river, the itineraries are very, for lack of a better term, fluid. Okay, so they're based on the lock schedule that the ship has. I can tell you that the majority of the time, the ship leaves very late at night, just to make sure that all guests are been able to be, to be accommodated with their flights if there are any delays. So most of the time, it's very late into the night. So if you're looking, if you're leaving from Amsterdam, you're not going to leave during dinner time. It's going to be way after dinner. So, but there really are no published schedules for times because the cruise line bases those times based on the lock schedules that they've signed up for, and they're not the same on every sailing.
Okay, great. Well, that concludes all our current questions. If you have any questions that we haven't, you might be, be thinking of right now, anything you think of that you'd like to have Michael answer live, please write the comments below. If you're watching this in the future, you could always ask the question. If you're on our group, just tag Michael at Michael Consoli, and it can get his attention so we can actually answer it for you as well. And well, someone made a comment here. Let's see. Oh, and Kathy West said, thank you for answering my question. Really looking forward to my first ocean cruise with Viking. Have been on 2 river cruises that were wonderful. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, John, and I want to just clarify the testing requirement for Viking. We recommend that you contact Viking directly. If you're traveling independently, not with Viking's flights, I would recommend contacting them directly and having them answer that question for you, because it is a very subjective question. The answer is going to be different. Our understanding is that if you're flying with Viking, but not utilizing them when you get to the city, so if you've deviated your air and flying in a couple days early, then 72 hours prior to your U.S. departure flight is what's required. If you're flying on your own and doing your own pre-trip or something like that before you get to the ship, then you're most likely going to have to provide yourself a test for 72 hours prior to your first interaction with Viking. But if your flights are booked through Viking and you've simply deviated them, the only requirement is that you have that test before your first U.S. departure flight from your origination city. So going back to the person who asked about flying from Phoenix to Philly and then on to Amsterdam, they're going to get that test within that 72-hour window before they leave Phoenix.
Okay, and we've got the Facebook user said, thank you so much. And in the future, like I said, give StreamYard permission so we can see you. We know you're part of the Viking Cruises group, so but we got to give them permission to see your information. And wow, we've covered so many topics, Michael. I've learned a lot myself, and I know everybody else has. Is there anything that you want to share that we didn't have originally listed?
Yeah, no, the question about, the testing is probably the biggest thing that we get questions about. So, I would encourage you to make sure that you're clear with the cruise line, the airline, or your travel agent, to get clarification on these things. Again, it is very subjective based on each guest's individual plan for traveling, but we want to make sure that you have the right documentation and you're not disappointed when you get to the airport. And, I mean, like John said, I have to tell you, I was just talking about the Budapest story, right? The lady asked me if I had my test. I had my test. The guy next to me had no test. So he was like, oh, I didn't even know we had to have a test to get back in the US. So he was not on a river cruise. He was just traveling back from Budapest. And he was able to go downstairs and get a test within 15 minutes and provide that for them. So, I mean, look, the systems are set up to help you get through this process, even if you do forget something. So don't panic. I also want to say that, you want to make sure you have all your paperwork. You show up at the desk at the airport with everything you need, including your test, all of that stuff. But don't let it stress you out. Don't let it override the experience of getting ready for the trip. Because I will tell you, and John will agree with me, once you're past that thing, once you check in at the airport and you're sitting at the gate, you don't even think about all that stuff that you have to do. You're just so excited about the trip and what you're about to experience that all of that falls to the wayside. So it is stressful. It can be stressful. It can be tedious to make sure you have all that stuff. You want to make sure you have a partner to make sure you bounce off the information to make sure you have everything you need. So if you have a travel agent, make sure you reach out to them and make sure you cover what you need for your trip. And, don't be so stressed about it. It's going to be a wonderful experience. You're going to get through the things you need to have, and you're going to have a great experience on the trip. So, once you get those things done, you have a lot to look forward to.
And we have another question, Michael. They say, we're going from B to A this month. Is there a laundry package available? Great question.
It's a great question. So doing the Grand European from Budapest to Amsterdam, and if you're in one of the standard cabins, the French balconies or the veranda cabins, there's laundry service. There's not a package. But I will tell you that the per piece pricing for laundry is very inexpensive. So you certainly can do a bag of laundry for not that much money. However, if you're in a suite, either the veranda suite or the Explorer suite, complimentary laundry is provided. So, but there is not a package to purchase. It is done per piece on the river. On the ocean product, however, as many people know, there are self-service laundrettes where you can do your own laundry.
Yeah, I was doing laundry on my cruise because I went back to back with another cruise, and they worked really, really great. It was easy to use. And then, of course, I sent some things out, which was just as easy. It came back like by the evening of the next day, and super affordable compared to I think it's cheaper than being at home, which was really surprising.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really nice. And that reinforces Vikings, one of their philosophies is not to nickel and dime you. And it really shows true. I know you constantly talk about, I think you just made a comment recently about the drink package to someone in a comment. Yes. The drinks aren't that expensive. If you want to have a drink package, you can do it. But I don't think it's necessary because the drinks are so affordable, depending on what you are choosing to consume on a daily basis.
Yep, absolutely. People really find the value in the beverage package are going to be those people that have, 3 or 4 additional drinks a day. And when I say additional, I mean in addition to the beer and wine provided with lunch and dinner, or if they're drinking 10 sodas a day, they're going to find that there's value in that package. Some people, as I said on the posts, find value in just not having, and I'm one of those people, not a big drinker, but I just find value in not having to worry about if I want something, not having to pay for it. Having that package is a real benefit. So the Silver Spirits beverage package, is a value to whether or not it's a value to you is really based on your independent needs. So, but it is, I have to say, of all the cruise line beverage packages, $20 a day for unlimited beverages up to $15 is pretty generous. So, there are some cruise lines that charge $103 a day for a beverage package. So, yeah, it's a pretty good value.
And I guess the biggest advantage I've heard, because we're people that really are wine aficionados. They're like, they really enjoy the house wines, but their taste, they want a little bit more. So with the Silver Spirits package, they could actually order a higher quality wine in their minds outside of the house wines that Viking normally would offer. And it was worth it to them for, paying with the package. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so, yeah, it's definitely something to look into there. Any other questions that come to mind? I know you were actually answering quite a few questions this morning. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And if you want to, if you need Michael to answer any other questions, if you want him to be your agent or just help you out, give him a call at 1-800-913-7245. And he can actually help you book your next cruise. He'd love to have your business. So please look him up at planmycruise.com. And of course, you can always email him. He never sleeps, Michael at planmycruise.com. If you have any questions, go ahead.
Just want to mention one thing, John. We're always going to make sure you get the best value and that, we take excellent care of you and provide you all the information to have a successful experience with us and on your cruise. So we certainly would enjoy having the opportunity to earn your business. But more than that, I also want to make sure, because I get this question all the time, we never charge a fee for my service. So, if you're interested and looking for a qualified travel agent to help you plan the perfect vacation, I would certainly love to have that opportunity. So thank you so much.
Great. And I don't see any more questions coming in. There's still a lot of people watching us live. It actually just went up by one. We appreciate all the thumbs up, the likes, everything like that. We appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy days, especially on a Sunday evening, to join us. Once again, this is actually going to be available for replay. But I think we have another comment here. Let's see what it is. Is it beneficial to buy your next cruise on a cruise? And I saw that stressed a little bit recently in the groups, and even on board when I was aboard my cruise, people really were talking about it. And I know there's a little bit of perimeters to that, right? Could you talk about that, Michael?
Yeah, so it definitely is always beneficial to book your next cruise on the cruise that you're going on. On the river product, they don't really have the ability. They don't have a cruise agent on board to book your next cruise. So what they do is they sell these $200 future cruise certificates. They're $200 vouchers that you buy for $100, and you can buy I don't know, I think you can buy 5 per person. So, but you can use one of those vouchers on a cruise. So they offer a savings by utilizing those certificates on the river. On ocean, they actually have an agent on board that will book you, and they do have some incentives. They vary by the time that you're booking, but they offer onboard credits or additional discounts for booking on board. We encourage our guests to book on board always. If you work with a travel agent, Viking will make sure that your travel agent that booked you on that cruise will get credit for the new cruise that you're booking. So you certainly want to make sure that if you want to work with that agent, again, that they get credit for it. But it absolutely benefits you to book on board every time.
Great. Thank you for that clarification there. And now, do they expire? Is the voucher, because I think there's something where they expire.
Yeah, the future cruise vouchers the onboard cruise certificates, which is the official term for it. The onboard cruise certificates, they don't expire for a long time. So I've never seen an expiration date on one.
Okay. Now I've got another question. Let's see. Oh, we got more questions. They're coming in. Hi, even though the Alaska cruises are near their summer time, will we still experience snow? And this is from Brenda. Hello, Brenda.
Yeah, so it depends on where you're going in Alaska. There will be opportunities to see snow, obviously, at the glaciers, or if you do the dog sledding thing, that type of thing, there will be. It also depends on when you go. I guess for summer, July, August timeframe, definitely less opportunities to see snow. But yeah, it's going to be a great experience no matter what time of the year you go, for sure. I mean, as long as you're going during the Alaska season, which is going to be, mid-May through mid-September.
And they always say, dress in layers, because you never know.
You never know.
So, and we've got another question. This is a really good one. When you leave the ship for an excursion, do you come back for lunch or stay in the town for a meal? And I'm wondering, that sounds like a river cruise. I'm guessing they're talking about river product.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I get it all the time. So, after the excursion, the cruise line is going to return you back to the ship most likely in time for lunch. If there's not an opportunity to get you back for lunch, like if you're going, on a tour that's all day, there's going to be a lunch opportunity on the tour. But the majority of the time, they're going to bring you back to the ship for lunch. And then if you have an optional excursion, you'll have time to get ready for that optional excursion in the afternoon.
And I remember from the river cruise we've taken, they really spell it out like, we're going to have it. It's optional, but it's available, because a lot of people want to explore the town.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of river cruising for sure. Being able to just walk off the ship and explore. So,
okay. So I think we're done with all of our questions, and it's been so great to have everybody here. And of course, great to have Michael. What a pleasure to always have you here and answer all these wonderful questions and provide such great information directly from an expert. So we can't say thank you enough.
Well, thank you, John. And I just want to say one more time that you want to make sure, if you want to make sure that your departure for your Viking cruise, goes smoothly, make sure you review this form that they provide you, the important information pre-departure form that they're going to send you about 3 weeks prior to your departure. They don't send it beforehand because they want to make sure the information is accurate. So just so you're aware, you want to make sure you get that within 2 to 3 weeks of your departure, and you review it thoroughly to make sure you have everything you need. And I also just want to reiterate that the information that we shared during this video was shared on May 1st, 2022, and was accurate at the time we made the video. Make sure you check the information for your specific departure because it can change.
Great information. And yeah, we thank you for stressing that, because I see people posting all the time and they're missing these things. Slow down and take the time to read that form when you get it, and go step by step by step, very methodically, because you don't want to get caught with a problem, because all those things are really, really important. Wow, thank you so much for helping us prepare for our cruise. Of course, we'll do this in the future, hopefully, as things change. Hopefully it'll be for the better and everybody make cruising easier. We won't have these such heated debates about things that are upsetting people. We still see so many people frustrated with some of the requirements. So hopefully things will only improve for the future, and we'll have an expert, Michael, here to help us along the way. And so hope you all have a great night. Michael, thank you again.
Thank you, John. I think we all look forward to not talking about future cruise credits, PCR testing, vaccination cards, all of that stuff. The day will come, but for now, this is where we are.
So thank God we're blessed here, and we can travel. And I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And thank you all for taking the time to join us. Please give us a like, thumbs up. Please subscribe to whatever channel you're watching us from. We really appreciate it. And visit cruiseaddicts.com for your latest news and information. And thank you so much, Michael, and have a good night.
Thanks, John. You too. Have a good night. Bye-bye.